Miller Biles. My book, Deart Hearts, is a collection of 27 short stories, and many of them focus on characters that experience social transitions of the 1960s. Some of the stories, though, do bring you all the way up to the 21st century. I am going to read an excerpt from the first story in the book called Lila. Lila. If you want to know about Lila as a child, look at the painting called The Two Sisters on the Terrace, oil on canvas by Pierre-Auguste Renoir in 1881. Apparently, they weren't really sisters, but that's beside the point. Like the younger girl, Lila was a delicate-looking child, but with flaxen hair and intense blue eyes. In Renoir's painting, the youngest is wearing a royal blue hat decorated with fresh garden flowers. This reminds me of Lila in two ways. First, picking up crocuses along the railroad tracks, and then sitting in the grass, weaving crocuses and dandelions into necklaces or bracelets or coronets for our hair, her with graceful fingers, me with fumbling hands. And I think the spray of pink carnations on her sister Iris's casket, and the vision of Lila ripping away a handful of the flowers and holding them to her breast. We were only 10, and we were fascinated with the life of Lila's teenage sister Iris. She had the same delicate features as Lila, but there was something steely about Iris, and somehow that made the boys even more determined to capture her affection. Renoir's older sister is wearing a scarlet hat and a corsage front and center on her coat. She is beautiful, like an angel, with rosy lips and wide brows. Her eyes look off to the side as though she is remembering something warm and precious. At least that's my impression. Pardon the illusion. This reminds me of Iris listening to and singing Earth Angel along with the crew cuts over and over. Lila and I mouthed the words to the song in her bedroom, which was next door to Iris's. Lila did the melody, and I did the doo-wop. We would stand on her bed holding imaginary mics and at times knocking each other over and collapsing into giggles. We imagined that Iris was singing to Ronnie Wilson, even though he wasn't there. Ronnie Wilson drove by regularly on summer nights in his father's Oldsmobile, and if Iris happened to be outside or even looking outside, he would stop and honk and take her for a ride around town. Maybe even go for a pop at Shakey's. Ronnie was a serious boy, Star Trek muscular, with dark eyes and brill-creamed hair. He wanted to be a mechanic like his father and eventually take over Wilson Motors. He had eyes only for Iris, and Iris and I mooned over that fact. In retrospect, his commitment seemed a bit boring. Where was the game in it all? Perhaps Iris felt the same after Daryl Sexton came to town. Daryl came just for the summer to work with his Uncle Mel and Aunt Mary in their novelty shop, since Mary was now preoccupied with a new baby girl. At first, Daryl helped stock the shelves with bowls of cloth, kitchen towels, coloring books and crayons, yo-yos, cheap trinkets, and wind-up toys. The Sextons were all pretty new to town and were themselves a novelty, especially Daryl. Mel's variety store soon became a hangout for teenagers, especially giggling girls. Daryl was a magnet, hip, brash, and good-looking. Then he switched to a job at the cemetery, which only enhanced his aura. He sported a dark tan and sun-bleached hair from the hours spent cutting grass and digging graves, shirtless and without a cap. We didn't know why he changed jobs, and the sextons wouldn't say. Maybe he missed the outdoors. Lila and I continued to believe that Iris had gone to the cemetery to visit their grandmother's grave, because her mother said it was so. Ronnie Wilson liked this version as well. At least that's what he said. It wasn't until Lila and I became teenagers ourselves that we realized the place had a dual purpose. It was a resting place for dead bodies and a makeout place for the town's teenagers. On the day she died, Iris rode her bike out there all on her own, rather than with her usual group of friends. And Daryl Sexton drove her back with a gash in the back of her head, blood matting her hair, and drool on her cherry lips. He said she slipped and fell back on her grandmother's headstone. My dad went back to the cemetery to retrieve her bike for the family, and I heard him say that it was nowhere near her mother's grave. My mother told him to shush. Thank you.